Good day to everyone. So we have completed the unit 1 is about the elasticity, and we are about to start the unit 2. In unit 2 we are going to study about the beams, especially what happen if you are bending the beam with some force which is giving on the one side and other side is fixed. Okay, so we are going to calculate the rigidity modulus and the Young's modulus of this bending beam, and we are going to find out. We are going to see how this actually derive the equations for this the properties the bending. Okay, so we consider the beam is nothing but a rod or a bar which is having the uniform cross section, and it is made up of homogeneous isotropic elastic material, and its length is actually much greater than the other dimensions. Okay, so this will be considered as a rectangular beam which is having the length of L and the area of cross section is A. Here this length is actually much greater than the area of cross section, there means other dimensions. So this is actually known considered as a beam. So since the length is much greater than the other dimension, and if you are applying a weight on the one side and the other side is fixed with the rigidly fixed, then if you are applying a weight in the free end, then the rod will bend. Okay, so this rod will having to bend with some a little. So it's actually bending. So due to this bending, there is a small, there is a deviation of the deviation of the position from the original position to the next position. There is a shearing strain. The shearing stress will happen. So the shearing strain will happen. So since this length is much greater than the other dimensions, this shearing stress we are actually neglected. We are actually just neglecting the shearing stress. And then when the beam is supported at one end and the other one is loaded, then so this apparatus is actually called as a cantilever, because this beam is actually one end is fixed and another end is free, and you are applying a weight on the free end. So once if this kind of apparatus is taken, this is called as a cantilever. And when such a beam is fixed at one end and loaded with the other, within the limit of the perfect elasticity, the load actually sinks the rod little. Okay, so the upper surface of the beam gets stretched. So once if the beam is actually bending, so the upper side of this beam is actually stretched, and as well as the same time the lower end will be compressed. So we can assume that the stretched part is having the convex like form, as or the lower surface which is actually compressed is having the concave form. Okay, so when we are going to study this kind of beams, we are going to assuming the different we are going to make the following assumptions. That means this weight of the beam is neglected compared to the load which you are adding. So the first assumption is the weight of the beam is negligible compared to the weight we are adding. Okay, so this is the first assumption, and the second assumption is, as I already told you, that the shearing stress, that means the shearing forces, can be neglected. Because the length is much larger than the other dimensions, all the shearing forces can be neglected in the beam. Okay. The third assumption is there is no change in the cross section of the beam. There is no change in the cross section of the beam as it bends. Suppose if it is bending, there is no change in the area of cross section. So this ensures that the geometric moment of inertia, that means that the geometric moment of inertia does not change as the beam bends. Okay, so that is the third assumption. And fourth assumption is the curvature of the bend is very small. Okay, the curvature of the bend of beam is small. Okay, so these are the four assumptions we have made while doing this. We are studying the bending of beam. So first we are going to find out what is the bending moment of the beam. Bending moment of the beam and the corresponding expression for this bending of the bending moment. Okay, so to study this bending moment, we are going to consider the same rod, and I am going to apply a weight on it so that there is a bending is happening. So I am going to consider a small portion of this bending of beam, which I am going to consider. So this is the beam I have considering. Let this A, B, C, D is the cross section of the area of beam. So the AB is the beam fixed at the part is AB. The end A is fixed with the rigidly fixed, and B is actually loaded with the other end. Okay. So we are considering this this dotted line. Let us take this is E and F. So this dotted line is actually considered as the neutral axis. That means the below, above this axis, this beam is actually elongating, and below this line EF, when the bar is actually compressing. The compression is happening in the brain, and the bar. So in the line EF is actually not altered. So this the unaltered point of the beam is called as the neutral axis. Okay. So we are going to consider the so this once if you are adding the beam, the total beam is not actually bending, but after the at some point there is the beam is actually rigid, and if you are adding a sufficient load, there is a bending only in the some very small part of the area. Let us I consider this part, that part as a P, B, C and P prime, and where the bending is started is actually cutted by the one plane which is taken as a P and P prime. So that is where the bending is actually happening in the bar or the beam. Okay. So once if you are applying a weight on the free end, so what happens is there is another opposite and equal force which is actually acting on the same beam at this point P prime, so that the bending is actually happening from that point. Okay, so the opposite reactional force, which is again as taken as a W, must be acting vertically upwards along this P prime. So since the beam is actually fixed at the point at A and D, suppose if it is not fixed, what happens is, suppose if you are applying a pressure, then this beam is actually trying to make a rotational motion. So since the other end is fixed, so that there is a couple is actually produced in the beam. So this couple, due to this two equal and opposite forces, tend to rotate or bend the beam in a clockwise direction. Suppose if you are applying a beam on the force on the downside, so it is trying to rotate on the clockwise direction. So this couple, due to this load applied to the free end of the beam, is just called the bending couple. Okay. So the couple actually produced in this bending of beam is called the bending couple. Okay, and the moment of this couple is called the bending moment. Which is notated by the word M. Okay, so the bending moment can be mentioned by the alphabet M. So since the beam is in equilibrium, suppose when you are applying a force on when you are adding a weight on the free end, and there is a opposite force acting on this beam, so that at some time this the force and the reactional force actually going to equal each other, so that the bending will be in the equilibrium. So there must be obviously be an equal and opposite couple also acting on the beam due to this due to in this equilibrium point. Suppose if I am considering a section of P, B, C and P prime, only taking this slice, we know that the extended filaments above the neutral axis of EF are in a state of tension, and thus it extracts the inward pull. Okay, as I already mentioned that this EF is a neutral axis. So once above this neutral axis, the beam is actually elongated, so that you will the beam is at this part. This means this filament is actually experiencing a inward pull, which is actually adjust them towards the fixed end of the beam. Okay, so that is what the arrow mark is actually mentioning, that it is actually pulling towards the fixed end. On the other hand, the below this neutral axis EF, this bend is actually contracting, and this state of compression which is exerting the outward push, so that it is actually pushing the beam outwards. Okay, so on the equilibrium point, both this inward pull and the outward push will be equal. So the moment of these stresses balance the bending moment M due to the load when a beam is in equilibrium, and must also be of the nature of the couple opposing or resisting the bending couple due to this load. Okay, and also the moment of this balancing couple due to the tensile as well as the compressive stresses in the both upper and lower end of the beam respectively is referred to as a moment of the resistance of bending, and it acts in the plane of the bending. This is the plane of the bending. So since it is equal in magnitude and of the to the moment of the bending couple, it is also called as the bending moment of the beam. Okay, so we are going to find out the expression for this bending moment now. Okay, so the expression for the bending moment. Okay, so to get the expression, we are going to consider only this part of the beam. That means P, B, C, and P prime. Only taking this part, I'm going to consider for this to find out the expression. Okay, so this is the part of the beam which we are considering. This beam is under action of deforming forces. So this beam is actually bending like a circular arc. So the small part of the portion of this beam is actually shown here. Okay. So here in this beam, this line A and B is actually the neutral axis of the beam, and that filament above this section, filament above the AB is elongated, and the filament below this line AB is actually compressed. Okay. So the filament AB remains unchanged because it's a neutral axis. There is no elongation or a compression happening in this corresponding line. Okay, so we are going to consider the 2 points P and Q in the I'm going to choose the 2 points in the neutral axis. It is taken as P and Q, and the R is the curvature of the neutral axis, which is actually meeting at this point. Let us take this point as C, and the angle between this P, C, P, Q is actually theta, and the distance between the Q and C is taken as R. Okay. So I can find out the length of this arc. Arc can be, the length of the arc P, and this arc P and Q can be written as, so the length of the arc, that is the PQ, can be written as this distance R into the theta. So this is the length of the PQ. Again, I am going to consider the another filament, which is actually P prime and Q prime above the neutral axis, which is actually situated from the distance of x. Okay, so this extended length, suppose if you are considering this P prime and Q prime, since it is above the neutral axis, there is a elongation is going to happening in this part P prime and Q prime. So this extended length can be identified. So the extended length at the P prime and Q prime can be given as r times of means r plus x. That means that the total the distance from this PQ is actually x. So that I am going to adding the x with the r. So r plus x times of theta. So this is the extended length. Okay. So once if I know the extended length and the original length, I can find out the difference. So that the increase in length which is equal to P prime Q prime minus PQ. That is the extended increase in length. So that I can just substitute this values of r plus x theta minus r theta, so that I can multiply the r theta plus x theta. So this r theta, this will get cancelled. So you will get only the x times of theta. So this is my increase in length. Okay. So since I already find out the increase in length, then I can easily find out what is the linear strain. Since the increase in length is actually connected with the Young's modulus, so I can find out the linear strain is actually the increase in length divided by the original length. Both the quantities we already know. The increase in length is actually x times of theta, and the original length is r times of theta. So that the theta will get cancelled. So the strain, linear strain, can be written as x divided by r. So this is my linear strain. Okay. I can write the expression for the Young's modulus of the material which is given as the E, which is equal to the stress divided by strain. Okay. So from this I already know this value of strain, so that I can know the strain value, and the Young's modulus of the material can be maybe known, so that I can easily find out what is the stress, the forcing stress, that is stress which is equal to E times of strain. I already know what the strain is. So directly substituting this linear strain here, I get E x divided by r. That is the stress. Suppose if you are going to consider the small area of cross section, let us take that the area of cross section, small area of cross section is considered. This small area of cross section is taken as a delta A. So I can easily find out the tensile pressure. The tensile force acting on this area, delta A. I can easily write it as the tensile force acting on this area, delta A, is equal to stress into the area. So the stress is nothing but the Ex divided by r into the area, which is nothing but the delta times of A, the small area delta A. So if I know the tensile force, I can easily find out the moment of a force, which is nothing but the tensile force into the perpendicular distance. So I already know this the force which is acting on this is Ex divided by r into delta A, and the perpendicular distance is nothing but that x. Okay. So I can just, this is the moment of force acting on the neutral axis AB. So that therefore this is taken as a Ex divided by r into delta A into x. or I can write this X will be multiplied by E delta A divided by R times of X squared. So this is the moment of a tensile force about the neutral axis PQ or AB. Okay. So the moment of force acting on both upper and lower half of the neutral axis can be obtained by summing up all the moment of tensile and compressive forces about the neutral axis. So this is the moment of force which I already calculated for in the small area of delta A, so that I can calculate the total moment of force. So the moment of all the forces about the neutral axis that can be written as just summing up this values. That means E and R is actually constant, so I can take it as outside, and summation of X square into delta E. So this is the moment of all the forces acting on this, forces about the neutral axis. So here you can see that the summation of X squared into delta A is nothing but the geometrical moment of inertia, which is taken as I into G, Ig, and A is the total area of cross section. So I can write this Ig is nothing but the A times of K squared, where the A is the total area of the beam and the K is nothing but the radius of gyration. Therefore, I can write the total moment of all the forces acting on about the neutral axis, just substituting this summation of X squared delta A instead of A K squared, so that I can write this as the total moment of all the forces which can be written as E divided by R times of Ig or E times of A K squared divided by R. Okay. So this Ig is actually depending upon the dimension of the material, dimension of the beam which we are using. So that suppose if we are using the rectangular in the beam with rectangular cross section, so you consider another case 1. That means that the beam is made up of rectangular cross section. Then suppose if the breadth of the rod is taken as B and the D thickness is taken as D, then the area can be written as A is equal to B times of D, and the K squared, that means the area of gyration is already calculated for the rectangular shaped body, which can be written as D squared divided by 12, which is already derived, so that you can just substituting this A and K in the equation Ig. So Ig, which is nothing but the AK squared, which is equal to BD into D squared divided by 12, which can be written as BD cube divided by 12. So this is the value of Ig. So I can substitute this Ig in this total moment of all the forces, so that I can write this total moment of all the forces as for the rectangular with the bending moment for a rectangular cross section, which is equal to E times of B D cube divided by 12R. Okay, so this is the bending moment of the rectangular cross section. Suppose if you are considering the beam is made up of circular material with a circular cross section, So the case 2 is circular cross section. The beam is measured above circular cross section, so that I can find out the area. A is equal for circular cross section is pi r squared, and the k squared, the area and the radius of gyration for the circular cross section is taken as a r squared divided by 4, so that I can easily find out the Ig, which is equal to a k squared, that is nothing but the pi r power 4 divided by 4. So I can directly substitute this value again in the bending. So the bending moment of a circular cross section is given as this E pi r power 4 divided by 4r. Okay, so this is the bending moment of circular cross section. Okay, so based on this, what material, what the dimension of the beam which you are using, the bending moment will be changed. So that for the rectangular cross section, it's a E B D cube divided by 12r, where B is the Young's modulus, B is the breadth, D is the thickness, and R is nothing but the total distance from the curvature of neutral axis. So similarly, for the bending moment of the circular cross section is E times of pi r power 4 divided by 4r. So if I know all the values in this expression, I can easily use this bending moment for the any cantilever problem. Okay, so I will stop here, and we can see the cantilever and the depression and compression happening in this cantilever in the next class. Okay, thank you.